Now let's talk Conference USA football as we get down to the final two conferences in the group of five. And we start, this is a conference that does not have divisions. So Texas San Antonio, the UTSA Roadrunners. Jeff Traylor did an amazing job in just his second year. It was a dream season for the Roadrunners. I mean, what a story they were. And there's a decent amount of players returning. They're going to lose some key guys on defense, but offensively, they get their quarterback returning. They do lose their big time running back, but they have weapons galore in the receiving department and the quarterback. Yeah, they've lost some guys, but to me, I still think Texas San Antonio is the team to beat. I know UAB is right up there. It's neck and neck, UAB and UTSA, but I think UTSA deserves the benefit of the doubt as the team to beat.
I got to make them the team to beat if for no other reason. Bill Clark has resigned at UAB.
He did?
For health reasons, yes. Exactly.
When did this happen?
About 3 weeks ago.
Really?
Okay?
I did not know that. Okay,
yeah.
That is a big loss.
Yeah, big loss. I mean, the team revolved around him. This coach here at UTSA, Jeff Traylor, you can mark this down. He will be coaching at a Power 5 conference, most likely the Big 12, if not next year, the year after here. He's probably the best group of 5 coach that's out there. I mentioned Blake Anderson before, but yeah. he's been around the block. Jeff Traylor's a new kid on the block, okay? And he was a coach of the year in the state of Texas. And look at this job that he's done with this football program here. They weren't just good last year; they were dominating last football season here.
And how about if it doesn't work out for Sarkisian?
Well, there you go. I mean, that's a natural, okay, with all the pressure on Sarkisian as well. And I want to ask you, who was the one coach that voted Texas #1 in the college football poll?
I was going to say, when we talk about them, I was going to go, you know what? There's some exciting players and blah, blah, blah. But, let's not get carried away. And now they really can't get carried away.
Oh, my God. I got to think the coach was I got to think it was Brett Venables from Oklahoma. Only
right?
Yeah,
that's a good one.
To throw a little bone to Texas.
It's not time yet.
Take the heat off of him. Right. But as far as Traylor goes, this guy is all about winning football games. He's, like I mentioned, 60 school team records that he set. My goodness. He's been an assistant at SMU in Arkansas and Texas. He's been around. Yeah. He's been there before. Texas. There you go again. Okay. They got a really good quarterback in Frank Harris, who over 3,700 yards and 33 touchdowns last year. They have to be the team to beat this year in the Conference USA.
Yeah. Franklin is an underrated receiver. Keep an eye on him. He had a big year last year and will have another big year this year. And Texas San Antonio will host Houston week 1. That's a really nice matchup. And that is a really fun place to watch a football game at the Alamo Dome that they have there. So that's going to be a crazy, environment. That's a dangerous game for Houston. And then they go to Army and Texas. Just imagine if they upset Texas at Texas. You think Jeff Traylor will be the head coach in 2023?
I think Texas will sign him on the spot.
So that's a hell of a way to start the season for Texas San Antonio. But UAB, that is a major loss for Bill Clark. Now, sometimes you can get the whole thing, the coach leaves and, I'm assuming, one of the assistants stays as the head coach now and they can run some sort of emotional high and let's win this for Bill Clark and all that kind of stuff. But if Bill Clark doesn't come back, and who knows, since it's a health thing, hopefully it's just a 1-year thing. And if it is, okay. But this year, that's the only thing I could say is maybe they could use it for some sort of inspiration because it's still a very talented football team.
He's been advised by doctors to call it a career, so I don't think he's going to risk his health for something like that, especially for the rebuild job that he did with this program here. That it was monumental with what he did with the program here, and we always talk about them being in the running because of what Bill Clark does, how he recruits, and everything about this UAB program here. They would have been in the conversation here again this year, but unfortunately, that being the case, we got to drop them down a notch or two.
Yeah, the quarterback comes back, Hopkins. They got one of the best running backs in the conference in McBride. So offensively, they're going to be okay, and they're always very good on defense. UAB will be at Liberty in week 2, and they host Texas San Antonio later in the year. but those are definitely still two of the top teams in the division. UTEP, you got Dana Dimmel doing a nice job at UTEP. Finally got over the hump last year, winning 7 games. They were able to go to a bowl. Didn't win the game, but they were competitive. They got some key players coming back. They got the quarterback back. They got one of the more talented running backs in the conference returning, and they got a lot of key players on defense. They haven't recruited yet to the point where they're Texas San Antonio. So I don't know if they still need a couple. I think at that point it'll be interesting to see if they can get to Texas San Antonio's level. But I think they're in a good spot. They should return again to a bowl. I don't think, though, they're on par with the top 2 dogs in that division yet.
I don't think they are either, Greg, and they kind of fit into a guideline that I use for automatic play against football teams. And in a nutshell, basically what it is they had a 7-win bowl season last year. Before that, they won a total of 5 football games the previous 3 years. It's sort of like a devil in disguise. They broke through. Now, can they repeat that this year after wallowing in the depths of shallow water previously? And I think it'll be difficult for them to become a bowl team this year, and I think they will take that step back this year.
Okay. Also, Western Kentucky. What a big year it was last year for Tyson Helton and the Hilltoppers, but they ran into that They ran into that Roadrunner bandwagon, and that couldn't get over the hump. It was a very entertaining Conference USA championship game, though. But all those top key guys are gone. The quarterback is now playing for the New England Patriots. Matter of fact, their offensive coordinator, they had that crazy thing where they recruited the coordinator. What was it, from Sam Houston, I believe? And yes. He brings in big-time receivers and big-time zappy quarterback, and they have this big-time offensive season, and they almost win the conference, and now all those guys are gone. They all either graduated or transferred. So Helton's kind of left all by himself. They still have some decent players, but they also lost a big boy on defense with Malone, now playing for the Atlanta Falcons.
Well, here's what bothers me is they got the job done last year, despite the fact that they took a huge plunge in college recruiting last year. 139th in the country. That's like not even on the charts. But what they did, as you mentioned here, is they went to Sam Houston State and brought all these flyboys in, Barry Zappi and company, and they
actually it's Houston Baptist.
Houston Baptist, okay, and rejuvenated this football program here. He's gone, and so too are their chances of repeating that way this year. Yeah. I understand Tyson Helton will probably do a pretty good job. This will be his 4th year, but they have to regress this year, Greg, especially after the year they had with Barry Zappi gone. It was all about Barry Zappi last year.
Yeah, I think it's one of those things where I give him to see how he can perform this year as a coach, and if he doesn't perform all that well, I got to be rethinking whether or not he's the right guy. But anyway, they're still going to be competitive. I don't see them where they were anywhere close to where they were last year with all that talent gone. Still, they're going to be one of the upper echelon teams in the conference. North Texas, they used to be one of the top teams back in the old days. Matter of fact, wasn't North Texas in the Sun Belt with Troy? Weren't they part of that? Like
I believe they were, yeah.
And they used to be the dominant teams.
They're one of the better teams. Exactly right.
Yeah. So It's been a while. Seth Luttrell, remember, just a few years ago, he was a hot coaching hire.
He sure was.
And then I forget what year it was. I think it was 2019. Then he had 2 bad years in a row, and all of a sudden everybody started running the spread, and he was just another coach. But they had a nice run at the end of the season last year, winning their last 4 or 5 games to become bowl eligible. So that was a nice story. I think they can carry that over again this year, but maybe another 500 team. Maybe they could end up better than Western Kentucky and probably compete along with Utep around that spot.
Well, I might think that Seth Luttrell made a deal with the devil at some point last year. They started out 1-7. And as you mentioned, he was a coach that everybody wanted, and he even refused to leave the program. And he had an offer to a Power 5 program and didn't take it in 2019 after he won 9 games. For whatever reason, he stuck around. And then he wins 4 games, and he wins 4 games, and last year he starts out 1-7. That's when the deal was cut with the devil, okay?
Uh-oh.
Because they did close out real well last year. It was salvaging for him, and if he comes back and has a winning season this year, and he can because he's got a lot of experience coming back this football season here, number 13 in the country overall in returning experience, he could put himself back on that map. I've liked him as a coach before, but you say he was out coached in those years that he didn't perform well. So this is going to be a huge key make or break it year here for Seth Luttrell and the Mean Green.
Yeah, the offense will be fine, as you mentioned. The defense, that's the problem. The defense lost, and they're not more of a defensive team anyway. So yeah, they're going to have to win a lot of high-scoring games this year. And they opened the season at Utep, so right there.
Yep.
I mean, you may have to beat Utep. That might have to be a game that you win in order to see if you can climb the ladder in that conference, in that division. Okay. Next up, let's talk about just a couple more teams. A few more of these teams. Florida Atlantic, Willie Taggart. What do you think about FAU at this point? Because it's been a very strange program with the coaches, and I don't know. Taggart's he's going all over the place. He's like he was like the hot coaching hire at Oregon, and that was a disaster. And now he's at FAU. He's back in this kind of a group of five setting, and things have not gone very well the last couple of years, including last year.
No, so what has he done? He's gone out and he hit the transfer portal real hard this year. He brought in the top-ranked transfer portal players inside the conference this year because he realizes he's up against it here right now.
Hey, come on to Boca Raton, Florida, and hang out with the chickies.
That's right. South Beach in the weekends. You'll like everything that's going on down here.
Yeah.
But he does have 15 other starters coming back. He's got N'Kosi Perry. He was a starter at Miami of Florida. So he's got some tools to work with here this football season here. Pair of 5-win seasons here. In his third year, he opens up with a pair of 5-win seasons in his first two. He's going to have to win this football season here, or I think Willie Taggart will be out looking for another job this year. The heat is on Willie this year.
Yeah. Also, Middle Tennessee State, Rick Stockstill just keeps going. Year 17 for Stockstill. I don't know. Isn't it time to move on? Chase Cunningham, that's the guy they have to keep him healthy this year. If they can keep him healthy, they might be an intriguing team.
I can say this, Greg. I can say that I can remember for as long as I can go back, I always was a huge Rick Stockstill fan, but I keep saying it and saying it and saying it. And he's like around, like you say, forever, his 17th year doing it. And mediocre teams, they don't challenge for a championship. They very rarely get blown out of the water. I think their 3-win season 2 years ago was largely because of the COVID. And he'll probably be a competitive football team again this year, probably go bowling again this year. But certainly nobody that's going to be a threat inside the conference this season.
No, and it's going to be tough because they're going to be battling teams like FAU and even Charlotte. And Will Healy, this is a big year for Healy because last year was a little bit disappointing. A lot of expectations going into last year, and it didn't really work out. Chris Reynolds is back at quarterback. They have two of the best receiver combos in the entire conference in Dubose and Tucker. They got a couple of players on defense. So this has to be a bowl year, no question. If it's not, Healy might be gone. I can see Charlotte kind of hanging out and being like a top 3 or 4 team in this conference if all goes well.
They got a little bit of a wobbly defense here, okay? They're one of these step-ladder defenses that's gotten worse and worse and worse, as time has gone on. But and you got no help from the transfer portal here as well. So last year's team had the largest majority of team starts from seniors, okay? That's not good news, okay? Because they're gone. So what he has is relatively no experience at all coming back here. Combine that with the fact that he didn't do well in the transfer portal here, I think he's up against it this particular football season here. It's his 4th year with the program, won 7 games his first year. That was great. He's only won 7 games combined since then. I think Will Healy's on the hot seat this year as well.
Yeah, and they got to learn to win on the road, too. They're just a really bad road team.
Yep.
Louisiana Tech, Sonny Cumbie is now taking over the program. That makes sense. That's a good hire for Louisiana Tech. But It's gonna probably take him a couple of years. He doesn't really have a whole lot of talent uh, just to start with, but it's probably not a bad hire.
No, a good hire. I think Skip Holtz's days were over. They were probably not listening to him after the long tenure that he had there, and they were slipping. There's no question about that. From 10 wins to 5 to 3. So Cumbie will be a fresh voice in the locker room for sure. The losing season last year snapped a 7-year bowl streak for this program.
Wow,
So that
yeah.
makes them a mission team. They'll probably play with a big chip or so on their shoulder this year. And with Sonny Cumbie here, I think this football program can do just that. They can reverse things and double their win total from 3 to 6 this year.
Rice and FIU round out the conference. FIU gets Mike McIntyre. And we know you can recruit in Florida. Whether Mike McIntyre can or not, but we know that there's a lot of players to recruit from. So I think, knowing his track record, he'll get the job done there in a few years. Not this year, but in time. And as far as Rice is concerned, I'm sticking at least one more year with Mike Bloomgren because I think he's a good coach. I think it's the perfect coach for Rice. They've had a lot of injury issues, especially at quarterback. That's kind of held them back. But I think maybe this is the year that they make a run and get back to bowling. Nothing more than that. But I'm going to say maybe this is the year they could sniff a bowl.
Let me get to Rice in just a second here. As far as Florida International is concerned here, Mike McIntyre is the fixer, okay? He's the guy from San Jose State that built that program from nothing to a good team. Uh, a program that won 11 games. He inherited a 2-win program, and they won 11 games 3 years later. He's in here to do just that with this program. Butch Davis really died on the vine with this program here. His first 3 years, he had pretty good years. Then he went 1-16 the last 2 years. He was at odds with the school, with the university. They just didn't want to fund the program, and he had his fill. It was a mutual departure that way. I think McIntyre can do some good things for this program here. But before you jump off the high board, remember they've only won one game in the last 2 years, and I think you got to watch him build this program here. Make this be his starting point, and next year we'll talk a little bit more about how Mike McIntyre can get this team into a bowl game.
And he's got a really good receiver. Tyrese Chambers might be one of the actual top players in the entire conference.
Exactly. And you mentioned Rice as well. The Rice Owls were a football program that last year they doubled their win total from 2 to 4. Mike Bloomer was finally, I mean, he's in the hot seat, no doubt about it. 4 years, he's got 11 wins and 31 losses, so he's going to have to get the job done. He needs to smell a winning season. Can he do it here this year? I don't know. I don't know. There's nothing to build on. It's not like he went out and he killed it or slayed it in the transfer portal. It's not like he's got a ton of returning talent coming back here this year. 5 years, no winning seasons here. Again, all the pressure here is on him. He did have a strong returning cast of underclassmen last season here that played, though. That's usually a good sign where you play those young kids and they become more experienced the next year. If that card plays out well for him, he could save his job.
And what was good too is the last 5 games of the season, they upset UAB on the road as a 23-point dog. They lose in overtime. They lost to Western Kentucky, one of the best teams in the conference. They lose by 10 at Utep, a bowl team, and they beat Louisiana Tech. They upset Louisiana Tech. That's a pretty good way to end their season.
It's a real good way to end their season. I'm sure Bloomgren's going to remind them just of that, how they had basically a tale of two seasons, the first half and the second half, and the second half played a lot better than the record indicated.